Anyway. What, is that the cold open now? You're just sitting here with your big blockhead and your red face like you've been drinking Guinnesses?
I don't drink.
No wonder you're no fun at parties. No wonder you don't have one of these. Anyway, we're back yet again on the Thicc Inc. podcast, here to react to the Week 2 games, give you some predictions going forward. So Tristan, start us off. Tell us what we're talking about today.
I'm starting us off.
You're starting us off. You have frustrated me.
Wow. Well, we're talking about Joe Burrow, and there's a big narrative out there that a lot of people that aren't a fan of the Bengals. We've been avid Bengals haters in the past. They're pushing that Joe Burrow's washed, or not that he's washed, that he's maybe not as good as we thought he is after his very rough Week 1 and a rough Week 2 performance. And they think, the Bengals, they're no good anymore. They're trash. I don't think that's really the case. I think they are exactly what they've been this entire time over the last 2 seasons. They have a very good elite quarterback. They have elite wide receivers. They have a terrible offensive line. They have a very good running back and a mid defense. It's been what it always has been. The only difference is that the rest of the AFC North is better. We'll talk about the Browns a little bit later, but at least in Week 1, the Browns had a lethal rushing attack and their defense was phenomenal. That's able to shut down a bad offensive line, and when you run for 200 yards, that makes things a lot easier as well. When you're playing the Ravens, last year a 99-yarder, or however long that fumble return for a touchdown was, is the reason you beat the Ravens in the playoffs, who were starting Tyler Huntley at quarterback, and Lamar Jackson wasn't playing, and their best receiver was Demarcus Robinson. When you have Lamar Jackson back on the field, Mark Andrews is healthy, you finally find a receiver in Zay Flowers that's capable of producing at a high level, of course the Ravens are going to win, especially when Baltimore's defense is always as good as it is. So it's not a shock where the Bengals are at right now. Now, the one major downside is that once again, Joe Burrow has re-aggravated that calf injury, which is also a contributing factor to the slow start because he missed a big portion of camp. But at the end of the day, the Bengals don't suck. It's just that the rest of the division got better.
Thank you for addressing the 12 Twitter trolls out there who are campaigning that the Bengals are actually a bad team despite going to 2 straight AFC Championship games. That really needed to be said. They're 0-2. Teams make the playoffs despite starting 0-2. They're clearly not bad. I don't think that many people were saying they were bad, but at the end of the day, if they keep trotting Joe Burrow out there with that calf injury, they're going to be punting on the season. They're in a spot right now where they're playing the Rams, they're playing the Cardinals, and they're playing the Titans in the next 3 weeks. They can probably afford to sit Joe Burrow. They're good enough to win at least 2 of those games without him in the lineup. Let him get healthy, let him recover. I'm pretty sure that's the reason he's struggling so much this early in the year. Not some haircuts, not because his O-line's terrible. He's played behind a terrible offensive line his entire career in the NFL. Not because his receivers are washed. Give him time so he can move around a little bit better in the pocket. Let him take a break, except you're going to start 2-3, maybe 1-4 worst case scenario, and then get hot later in the year. It's how you've made the playoffs in the last few seasons. You got hot late and then smoked people in the first few rounds. There's no shame in saying Joe Burrow. That's what needs to happen. As for the Ravens being elite now, probably, but they're also injured again. Dobbins is gone for the year. Their secondary's banged up. Their O-line's banged up. It's the same Baltimore Ravens. We say this every year. It's why people put the prerequisites, they'll win the Super Bowl if they can stay healthy. They can't stay healthy. We'll be talking about the Ravens, how unlucky it is they're all hurt, how unlucky it is Lamar's gone down, how unlucky it is Odell's gone for the season by Week 10. I'm starting to get real sick and tired of this, and it's not any individual player's fault. Might be the medical staff's fault, might be the training staff's fault, I don't know, but it's just a cycle which keeps repeating over and over again. Until further notice, the Ravens, not a Super Bowl contender.
Well, I made no projection about the Ravens when it comes to the rest of their season. My point being, a healthy Ravens team is better than what the Bengals currently have, and a majority, all their key players were healthy. They had Lamar Jackson healthy, they had Mark Andrews healthy, they finally had an elite receiver.
Yeah, they didn't have J.K. Dobbins healthy. Humphrey was hurt, not playing in the game. What are you talking about? All their
They have Gus Edwards, who's replacement level at over 5 yards a carry. You can argue that Gus Edwards is better than J.K. Dobbins.
The Gus Edwards hype train is purely fantasy and numbers based. He's not on the same level as J.K. Dobbins. That rushing attack was balanced because they had 3 guys in the backfield who can carry the ball at a functional level, not the one guy they had been with Dobbins. Edwards is fine, but if you were relying on him to carry you throughout the games unless, of course, Lamar steps up and keeps doing what he does on the ground. It's not a recipe for success.
Again, I didn't make a projection. I'm just saying it's not a shock when a almost entirely healthy Ravens team with much better receivers, they added Odell, which is better than what they had. As I said, when they played the Bengals in the playoffs and almost beat them, their best receiver was Demarcus Robinson. Having Zay Flowers and having Odell as your third receiving option isn't much better than what they've had in the past.
Okay.
So they're going to beat the Bengals when they have that.
So they beat the Bengals by 3 points with an injured Joe Burrow and a healthy team. That does not bode particularly well for the Ravens in the long run. But there are teams which...
Hater energy.
Oh yeah, I'm a notorious hater of the Ravens. You got me here. I love the Bengals. I love the Browns. But there are other teams which are struggling with injuries much worse in the AFC North than both the Ravens and the Bengals. Is the Browns season over here? Because I kind of think it is. What is the offensive identity going forward? Are they still going to keep trying to pound the ball behind that O-line with Jerome Ford, who had a 69-yard carry, but other than that, very pedestrian? Are they going to try and make Deshaun Watson pass the ball 40 times a game and have Amari Cooper get open? Donovan Peoples-Jones hasn't stepped up. Elijah Moore has not stepped up. David Njoku looked all right, not capable of being an elite receiver. And Watson's looked terrible. 3 turnovers, 2 of which resulted in touchdowns yesterday. It's just not a recipe for success. That offense is cooked now. They can do nothing without Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb is not coming back. We saw that injury. This team is going to turn to the 2022 New York Jets. Great defense powers them to 7 or 8 wins, but in the AFC North, they're done. They went from a playoff team maybe winning the division to out of it entirely in the span of 1 week.
Well, I think I am the kiss of death when it comes to saying nice things about your team. Because I said I was wrong about the Browns. I underrated how good their defense can be. I underrated how good their rushing attack was going to be when they went out and destroyed the Bengals in week 1. They looked very good because of that defense and because of what Nick Chubb and that rushing attack did on the ground. Also with Deshaun Watson incorporated into that. Now, when the best player on your offense, I'm not going to say on the team because they do have Myles Garrett on that defense, gets injured and you lose your offensive identity, and Deshaun Watson looks the furthest thing from his 2019 form when he's completing 70% of his passes. One thing that was reaffirmed to me in week 2 is that Deshaun Watson is not a high-level passer of the football anymore, or at least right now, if he ever regains that in the distant future, because I don't see it happening anytime soon. And Zadarius Smith, who kind of elevated that pass rush, got banged up in the game. So that's another downside for the Browns. So after looking, like Isaiah said, I fully agree with him, looking like a playoff team in week 1 off the strength of that rushing attack and pass rush and that defense, which the defense will probably still be solid. I don't think they're a playoff team now. I don't think they have a shot unless Deshaun Watson from 2019 randomly shows up.
Shout out to the Steelers, though. Najee Harris was actually doing a little bit better on the ground, particularly if he went outside the tackles. Couldn't do much inside, but that's more of an O-line issue than a Najee Harris issue. Receiving game, George Pickens finally broke out. 4 receptions on 10 targets, not special, but over 120 yards and a touchdown. Very good from him. Kenny Pickett's still worrying, but you play with what you got. He's a year 2 quarterback who hasn't had a full season under his belt as a starter, so that's still up in the air. He's not as washed as Watson appears to be, though.
Well, Matt Canada is probably the biggest issue with the Steelers' offense.
I'd say interior O-line, but Canada's definitely up there. On to an offense which is also struggling mightily due to lackluster play calling. The Chicago Bears don't look good, and there are many reasons for that, but it's not the receiver's fault anymore. It's not the weapons around Justin Fields' fault anymore. That narrative's died. The issues are Fields has a very slow drop back, is not capable of standing in a clean pocket and delivering balls to open receivers. The vision's not there, and he just doesn't quite look capable of doing the short yardage stuff in the NFL. He doesn't look like a good passer. And he wasn't running the ball either this week against the Buccaneers, got outrushed by Baker Mayfield, so there's nothing to his game. They have no redeeming qualities. That screen pass, which resulted in an interception, I know they ran 3 times in a row. That's horrible play calling. You can't throw that to Shaq Griffin. You just can't. That is a terrible read. That is pathetic stuff from Justin Fields. He looked like the worst quarterback in the league last week. He looked worse than Zach Wilson. He is not an NFL guy if he keeps playing at this level. Bears fans are going to try and blame the play calling. it's bad. But at some point, you have to overcome that if you are going to be functional in the league. We're in year 3, and he's making mistakes I would be worried a rookie made. It's not good stuff. The Bears are cooked. It's over. They are going to be looking for a new front office, a new head coach, and a new quarterback this offseason.
So you think they're replacing everyone?
They should replace everyone. There's no future to be had there.
Well, I've been a major supporter of Justin Fields in the past. I want to believe in him. As far as an athlete, he is phenomenal. He's special, but he's been flat out bad. Isaiah spoke to how long he spends in the pocket, and I saw on Colin Cowherd's podcast, he had Dave Wanstead on, who I'm not exactly familiar with who that is, but he pointed out in college, Justin Fields took 56 sacks, and in that same offense, the next year, over the course of his career, C.J. Stroud took 12. So that just goes to show you that taking sacks has been a problem for Justin Fields since college. He doesn't do his offensive line any favors when it comes to making them look good or keeping that sack number low. We can talk about how bad the Bears' offensive line is all day long, but at the end of the day, Justin Fields contributes to that problem. But with that being said, there's also something to be said for the coaches not helping themselves and not helping themselves win games by using a player's skill set to the best of their ability. Because what Justin Fields does at an elite level, one of the best in the NFL, is running the ball at the quarterback position. He had, 1,200 yards or something like that last season running the ball? They have 3 solid running backs, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, the rookie, and Donta Foreman, and then they have one of the best to do it at the quarterback position. So the fact that in Game 1, their only quarterback design run was a QB sneak, and they're not running the ball more with Fields, and they're dropping him back as a passer, is not a smart decision. You're not getting the most out of the talent you have on your roster. What they need to do, Brian Dable's the example with, now Daniel Jones, but Josh Allen in Buffalo. And then you look at Shane Steichen now with the Colts and Shane Steichen with Jalen Hurts. As that player's developing, they're utilizing that player where they're at in that moment. They're not trying to turn them in to a drop-back passer, and they're using their athleticism. They're using quarterback-designed runs. They're utilizing the play action, and then you hope they develop those other skill sets as their career progresses, and they're making those reads. And guess what? When a player's successful running the ball, it's going to build confidence, allow them to be successful and more successful in other parts in their game. And at the end of the day, Justin Fields may not be the answer. He has been very bad this season, but the play calling is not helping him succeed. It's not helping the team be competitive in games, and I think there's 2 big problems within that Bears offense right now.
I think you're completely wrong in the sense, they got to use them at where they're at in the career. The reason Josh Allen's running took off so much in year 3, got much more efficient with, is because the passing became a much more threat. Same with Jalen Hurts. You look at the difference in him as a passer between early in his career and then last season when he truly took that next step to be a top 10 passer, and that opened up the run for him, that in addition to the QB sneaks, but you have to take the step as a passer if you want to be a truly elite dual-faceted quarterback. Fields simply isn't going to be able to do that. He can keep running the ball fine, but the passing has to come first, in my opinion. You can't just say, let's run it, and then the passing will come. The passing has to be the priority in this offense, and it gets much easier to run.
You're telling me the passing came first with Hurts and Josh Allen?
No, I'm saying
the running came first.
You clearly are not listening to what I'm saying.
I don't think you listened to what I said.
The passing developed to such a point it made the running much easier. The running was already there, but it got more efficient. It got better. They stopped taking as many hits, picked up more yards per carry as their careers progressed. It became better once that passing was there. That's what set them apart. The passing has to come at some point.
No, I agree. It has to come at some point, but clearly it is not there at this point in his career.
So prioritizing the run, you got to make him learn how to pass. Either he's going to learn or he's not. You have to put him in these situations. If he's never going to learn how to pass and it's just always going to be a 1,000-yard rush or a 2,000-yard passer, you need to move off of him. You got to figure out what you have.
If you utilize the rushing part of it, can you agree that no quarterback designed runs in week 1 is horrific game planning, play calling? When you have whether you have Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, you probably have more than 0 quarterback designed runs outside of a QB sneak.
I mean, what are we calling a designed run here? Are we calling
quarterback power, read
I
option?
would consider sending guys deep and then having your quarterback step up in the pocket a designed run to a certain extent. That's part of it. They ran plays where guys were deep, the cornerbacks and safeties were pushed downfield. Same with the linebackers. Fields could have taken off and ran there. Guys like Allen, Hurts, Lamar would have taken off and run there if only they had defensive linemen in front of them. the coaching staff's not good. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't think saying, oh, they've got to prioritize his running is worthwhile at this point. It's year 3. You have to figure out if this guy can throw the football or not.
All I'm saying, we don't need to belabor the point because clearly there's some disagreement, and you dislike him way more than I do. I think he's been bad. The coaching especially when he had Matt Nagy and whatever was going on earlier in his career, has not done him any favors to develop him the best way possible. And I think when you look at Shane Steichen now with the Colts and what he did with Jalen Hurts on the Eagles, and you look at what Dable did with Josh Allen, and you look what he's now kind of brought Daniel Jones to a slightly higher level, that's the way to do it and not what they've done so far. So I think it's two bad things combining together. I don't think it's all Justin Fields, which...
Yeah, but the worst part of it's Fields. Anyway,
if you want to say that.
There's no want to. It's merely a statement of fact. I do like speaking the truth. On to Broncos country, let's cry. And Tristan, you've got an interesting opinion on what they should do. They just took a big loss to Washington. For once, Russ played well. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, another 50 or so on the ground. Defense let him down. A peculiar turn of events. Gave up 35 points to Eric Bieniemy, Sam Howell, and the Commanders. So what do you think should happen in Denver right now?
Well, I think it is pretty evident what we've seen. They've been better. They're clearly better with Sean Payton and the offense that he's running with Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson has showed a different commitment to running the ball this season versus last season, but he still clearly is not athletically where he's been at in previous seasons. And the Broncos roster is not all that great, especially when you compare it to the Chargers roster, where their biggest problems are head coach right now, the Chiefs roster, and some of those other rosters in the AFC. Their roster is not on par with what it should be, and they have arguably... You could say Russell Wilson's worse than Jimmy G right now, or at least on the level of Jimmy G.
You couldn't.
You could make that argument. So I think that the Broncos' next decade has been doomed by that Russell Wilson contract and that trade. Luckily for them, they have their first-round pick this season, and what they should do if they want to save their franchise over the next 5 seasons, they're not winning a Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. They need to trade Russell Wilson to the Falcons or to the Jets, take on a majority of that contract. You offload some of that to the team you trade him to. You get some draft picks in return. You punt on this season. You still have Sean Payton, a phenomenal head coach, and you give yourself a chance at a Drake May, a Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, if you happen to be that bad, Shedeur Sanders. There's a plethora of quarterbacks in next year's draft. You give yourself a chance at the future rather than being, a 6 to 9 win team over the next 4 to 5 seasons.
That is the stupidest thing I think you've ever said. First off, Nathaniel Hackett is the current head coach of current offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers, current quarterback, under contract for another 2 years or so, will be coming back next season. Regardless of the Achilles being healthy or not, we'll still try. Atlanta has a young quarterback they're not going to move off of unless he just stinks it up beyond belief or gets hurt. And what type of cap hit would they have to take from that Russ contract? And even if they were taking a cap hit, why would a team give up meaningful draft capital when they can A, develop a young quarterback, B, get a veteran guy in free agency without giving up draft capital, or C, just draft a quarterback? Why would they take on Russell Wilson, who is not a top 10 quarterback, on a bad contract, even if a part of that contract doesn't come with him? Why would they take him on? What team is in such a win-now position that they need to bring in a mediocre quarterback to put them over the top? It's none of the teams you named.
Well, the Jets wouldn't work for the Nathaniel Hackett reason and the fact that there's Aaron Rodgers there and his contract's already on the books. But if you cut his cap hit in half and you only have to take $25 million on a cap, that suddenly becomes a much more, that contract's not that bad if you're the team that's taking on.
$25 million is a ridiculous cap hit to take for the next 3 seasons or so for a player who is not on your roster. $25 million is a top-tier defensive player, a top-tier receiver, and instead you're paying not have Russell Wilson on your team. That's another thing. We are 2 games in to Sean Payton being the Broncos head coach. One of those games, he scored 33 points and lit up a decent defense, had 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. Are we really just saying, oh, let's put on the season now? They're 0-2. Let's trade Russ. This
you
is
know who they
idiotic.
play over the next 6 weeks.
They're probably not going to win
They
too
play
many
the
games.
Chiefs twice. They play the Dolphins once. They play the Jets defense once. And they play the Bears, who are that's probably
they play
a win.
the Jets offense when they play the Jets defense too. It's not just they're sending the offense to go compete against the defense and that's
But
it.
point being that there's no way they beat the Chiefs.
The learning window in their schedule is situated against the toughest teams. So once they start figuring out that system, once Russ starts working with Sean Payton, they have got through the hard part of their schedule. They get to play the Raiders, the Chargers down the back half. Those are easy games considering how bad that Chargers defense is and how bad the Raiders quarterback situation is. If Russ keeps playing at the level he has and the defense steps up, this is not a bad team. Like, winning 7 to 10 games is a realistic possibility, somewhere in that range. Does that get you a wild card spot? Maybe at the high end of that. 10 might get you it. But you don't just say, oh, well, we didn't make it work in the first half of the first season in this new system. Let's give up on the quarterback. We gave all this draft capital and all this money. Dude, that's not going to happen. That's stupid.
If you're the Broncos, let's say 6 weeks from now, and you have 2 wins, so you're 0-2 right now. 6 weeks from now, we're 8 games into the season. Well, no, it'd have to be. Let's just say 4 weeks from now, 4 or 5 weeks from now, you've played the Chiefs twice, you've played the Dolphins once, you've won 2 more games. You are now 2-6, 2-5. Let's say they're 2-5 in the next 4 weeks. And you then take a look at the Falcons, and your passing attack has still been horrible. The reason you're not running away with games, Desmond Ridder doesn't look like a quarterback. You have a chance to win the division, and with how the NFC is, possibly make a push if you get a quarterback in there who can facilitate the offense. If I'm the Broncos planning for the future, I'd much rather take on some of Russell Wilson's salary, get a chance at drafting a quarterback high in this year's draft, than have the 16th, 17th best quarterback in the NFL, plus Sean Payton for the next few seasons on
we watched the
a top
Broncos
5
defense
contract.
Carry that garbage offense last season to 7 wins? That's not a good quarterback in this year's draft. You might get a fine one. That's not a Drake May. It's not a Caleb Williams. The offense is going to be better. I don't think
If they trade Russell Wilson, they're not winning anymore.
Russell Wilson played horribly. They're not going to openly tank. They can win games with the backup quarterback with how good that defense is. This is an illogical statement you've made. Like, I know you were trying to cook. I see the thought. I see the vision. It's in there somewhere. You need to take the family cookbook I've got here and start brewing something with that. Because whatever you're trying to cook here, it's garbage. You are giving people food poisoning with this.
When they trade him this season, you can come back and talk to me.
Even if it happens, it'll be a stupid move for both teams. But it's not happening. This is a name prattle. You are yapping. We are witnessing a yap on the podcast right now. How can you, as a Giants fan, sit here with a smile on your face, knowing that it took a 31-point performance in the second half from Daniel Jones against the worst team in the NFL, who may openly be tanking with some of the play calling we witness? How can you sit here and enjoy life knowing that's what it took to beat the worst team in football by 3 points? The Giants might win 4 games this year.
Well, I think a large... See, this conversation's always multifaceted. People don't want to have it. People like Isaiah
People don't want to talk to you, yes.
People like Isaiah who hate the Giants, and they hate the fact that he has to deal with me, who's a Giants fan, every single day. They want to take that game out and say, oh, the Giants are horrific. They're never going to figure it out. But the Giants did figure it out on offense. You know, that first blocked, field goal for a touchdown in the Cowboys game, that set their offense completely off track all the way into the second half of the Cardinals game. But guess what? They figured it out. So they were moving the ball. Daniel Jones threw for over 300 yards, rushed for over 50. Darren Waller got going. Isaiah Hodgins got going. Jalen Hyatt caught 2 big passes, showed off elite speed.
Saquon Barkley got going to the medical tent.
Well, you see, you don't let me finish my statement. Obviously, I'm going to address that. And with that being said, there is all the elements of what you want to say and bash on them for is true. Their defensive pass rush is not there. The fact they couldn't get to Josh Dobbs consistently is pathetic. You drafted Kayvon Thibodeau, what was it, 5th overall? He hasn't done anything. Azeez Ojulari from the Dave Gettleman regime hasn't done anything. The pass rush is not good right now. I don't know if they're going to figure it out. Probably won't this season, but I feel much better about the offense in that game. I think it was a lot to do with that slow start in the first game. I think they figured a lot of things out, but now you're also out without Saquon Barkley this week. I don't really think now they have a chance at beating the 49ers, but as far as
now, they never had a chance in the first place to beat the 49ers.
I didn't even say now.
You definitely said, I don't think now they don't have a chance to beat the 49ers and Saquon's out. They never had a chance.
They might have had a chance if Saquon's on the field. Anytime Saquon's on the field, they have a puncher's chance.
A puncher's chance? Is that the phrase we're using? A puncher's chance?
Yes, it is.
Did you pick that one up on YouTube today? Is that the phrase of the day calendar? A puncher's
Regardless.
chance?
The biggest problem with the Giants isn't their offense. It is their lack of a pass rush and what we saw from the defense in that game. The fact Josh Dobbs put up 28 points with James Conner at running back, Marquise Brown, and I can't name another receiver on that team outside of Zach Ertz who plays tight end, not a good sign for the defense. And can we stop pulling this towards you?
Well, it's my tablecloth, but... So you're telling me the Giants were so mentally boomed from the first drive of the first game of the season against the Cowboys that they played horribly for another 6 straight quarters. A team that mentally weak, mentally feeble, has no place in the NFL, I'm afraid. Don't try and say, oh, well, that stuff got them off to a rock star. You have got to be able to bounce back as a unit of the National Football League week to week. Obviously, bounce back in the second half. How much of that is the Giants? Not that much. How much of that is the Cardinals? Whole lot. This is a bad team, my man. I don't know what to tell you. Like, what is the end goal of this season?
So you speak positively. How many games do you think the Giants are going to win?
Who knows? I haven't looked at their schedule. I don't have it in front of me.
But you speak so negatively about the Giants when they're probably going to win 7-8 games, and then you say and talk about that like for the Broncos, like that's a good thing.
Yeah, because their expectations are different. You didn't sit here at this table all offseason and hammer the fact the Broncos are going to the playoffs.
I'm talking about you, not me.
You said,
obviously for me, that would be disappointing because I predicted them to win 10 games this year.
See, you're the issue here, though. You are the one who is in denial and needs to be beaten with my rod of knowledge in front of these viewers. Tristan, shut up here. I am talking to America, and I am telling them that you are delusional about this. You have hyped up the Giants beyond belief, and now that they're on pace to win 8, 7, 6, 5 games, you say, well, it wouldn't be that bad compared to some other teams. There were no expectations for the Broncos going into the season. I had to hear about the Giants' expectations all
Sean
offseason.
Payton guaranteed the playoffs before the season.
Do you really care what Sean Payton, the mastermind
We're talking
of
about
Bountygate,
media
has to
expectations.
say? The media expectations.
Whatever.
I'm talking about the Giants here.
Your team's
You
lost.
want to talk about the Giants. You said, oh, we got to talk about our favorite teams every week. I'm talking about your favorite team. I'm having a good time doing it. You having fun?
Well, you want to talk about the fact that your team's 0-2, my team's 1-1.
That's crazy. They're still a better team than your team. My team didn't get blown out 40-0. My team loses 1-score games like real men. That turnover battle is something serious. They clean that up, they'll be all right. Winning the Super Bowl? Who knows? People should probably stop saying they are, but you got to put it out there into the universe. At the end of the day, though, the interior offensive line and the defensive line, somewhat lackluster. That's a polite way of putting it. Not going to be able to hang with the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Eagles, obviously. But Kirk looks good. The receivers look good. The young guys are all right. Hopefully Christian Darrisaw is able to get healthy. That would be very beneficial. And the secondary is way ahead of schedule. For the most part, they locked up Jalen Hurts despite 2 long balls. Other than that, great job.
Well, the Vikings have elite they have an elite receiver in Justin Jefferson. They have an elite tight end in TJ Hawkinson. They have Jordan Addison, who looks like he can be a very, very good receiver in this league. They have Kirk Cousins, who's a top 12, fringe top 10 quarterback
he's top
in the
10.
NFL.
I'll give it to him so far. Through this first 2-week stretch, he's definitely been
Through
top
the
10.
first 2 weeks. So they have the ability, like you said, if they cut out those turnovers, to get in shootouts and win shootouts. It's just a matter of when they have those turnovers, it's going to be very hard for them to win. Because their interior defensive line, when it comes to stopping the run, basically non-existent. They don't have a run defense when they play a team like the Eagles, who are very good at running the ball. I think they might struggle with the Bears if the Bears commit more to the run with how we know the Bears can run the ball. So I think when they play some of those teams, they're going to struggle, but they have so much talent on the offensive side of the ball that they're able to overcome some of those deficiencies they have on defense when they get in shootouts.
Let's not get carried away here. The Vikings are going to score 85 points on that Bears defense. They might mercy rule them. The clock will be running by the second half. But the turnovers, you're right about. But Color me shocked if the best receiver in football, Justin Jefferson, has another play where he fumbles the ball out the back of the side of the end zone, leads to a 10-point swing to end the half. I'd be real surprised if that happened again. I somehow don't think he'll be reaching for the pylon too often in the near future. So without that play, the Vikings win the game, or at the very least, it's more competitive in the second half. So I'm optimistic. This is still a playoff team, in my opinion, in large part due to how lackluster the NFC North has been looking.
This man's guaranteeing Super Bowls,
Guaranteed
but
the
I'm
Super
the
Bowl.
delusional one with the Giants.
I ain't guaranteeing. I'm just saying they're going to win it.
Whatever.
All right.